This is Snake373, as I'm known in the gaming community, or as I'm known on Twitch, Snake Vape. Sure, I'm going to explain why I'm called Snake Vape and give more insight on that. But I just want to do a quick recap of what Disney Infinity is in my life. I'm a good player of games like the Toys to Life games, except for Lego Dimensions. I feel like I've played so many Lego games that I can't possibly invest all the money needed to play and enjoy Lego Dimensions. So that's probably going to be a franchise I won't touch until I've completely taken care of my other two, which is Skylanders and Disney Infinity. Now, I put Disney Infinity as priority, top priority when it comes to investing money in it. And then when I can, I'll invest money in Skylanders to kind of keep up with the Joneses on that one. But yeah, I digress. So I'm a very big Disney Infinity enthusiast. I really like it. You know, at first I didn't really like it when it first came out. The first edition, I invested a shit ton of money in buying all the characters, you know, catching up. But I just couldn't get into the whole creating the worlds thing. I couldn't get into like making shit happen. But then I got Disney Infinity 2.0 when it came out with Marvel figures, and now I have 3.0 with the Star Wars figures. And given enough time, which has probably been 2 or 3 years I've been playing this game and stuck with this franchise, I've learned a few tricks of the trade, and I've learned how to get comfortable in my own skin when it comes to creating stuff. So that's just a quick recap of where I'm at. I've got almost all the figures. I'm missing Boba Fett and of course the Force Awakens figures, but that's going to be rectified today because it just came out today. So I'm going to take care of that, but I'm still missing Boba Fett and I'm missing the Zootopia figures from that are going to be released later on. Don't know when. The release date hasn't been really, revealed. So, but apart from about 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 figures, I'm only missing 7 figures, not including the symbiote Black Spider-Man, which I don't really count as a figure, even though he is a different figure, because I have the costume power disc for Spider-Man to turn him into symbiote Spider-Man. So it's kind of like I don't really prioritize that figure as a really important figure to have, even though he has his own statue, which I found surprising, and he has his own little portrait. And I definitely don't have any of the Crystal figures. I have no need for the same character twice, no matter how different it looks. And honestly, I prefer the character to look like the character that you recognize. And there you go. Sorry about that. I had to switch over to the Disney Infinity window. For some reason, I was on the broadcast window. Okay, so just to summarize, I don't have crystal figures because I already got the original figures, and the original figures look better. They look more accurate to the character. Crystal figures, neat concept, but ultimately useless. They play the same as the regular figures. They're just see-through. I mean, this isn't Pokemon. I'm not trying to get holographic cards here. If I got a Pokemon, I got a Pokemon in the game. It's not like you're gonna give me like a different, purely cosmetic difference is with the figure itself. I just find it useless. The only way I pick up any of those crystal figures is when I've got like absolutely so much money and nowhere to put it. That's the only time I make the exception. Same thing with Symbiote Spider-Man, exclusive to the PS Vita version. But GameStop has used figures. I'm sure somebody will trade in that figure, and I'll find it used, saving me the money that I would need to spend on the PS Vita version for an outdated, now it's outdated, version of Disney Infinity. So, that being said, I've created a lot of my own personal levels, just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. Uh, let's go to I think that's where you can see it. Uh, Here we go. These are all the levels that I've personally put time into creating, and I don't like to create levels that I can't personally enjoy. Every one of these levels, give or take 1 or 2 that don't function properly because after I saved it, Disney Infinity has a really nasty habit of having memory leaks. So when you have enough space to have shit load up, like enemies, vehicles, and everything, you build this massive world. As soon as you save it and then try to load it back up again, it glitches out and shows that the memory system is full. So it doesn't allow you to spawn anything, nothing whatsoever. Not even the sidekick characters, nothing. Uh, and I don't intend to make the like Marvel and Disney. You know what? Let me just show these real quick. This is my world. I put it as my world simply because I had the interior and all that shit connected to this world. And I had It's a Small World, my personal favorite ride. Yeah, it's a childhood ride, so I had that in there. So I kind of it sounds very egotistical the way I explain it. Race on my tracks, explore the world, all heroes come to. It's very confident and egotistical, but I didn't intend for that to happen. I just wanted to describe that it's personally my level, and this one I think still works. Let me show you. We'll build the level. Don't worry. We're gonna build the level and we're gonna do it right. But while it's loading, I wanna show you Mickey. Mickey's here. No, his name is actually Mickey. I call him Mickey. Obviously, if you had to explain that, then I don't know what you're doing watching my channel. But no. All my levels have a lot of common patterns to them, and I just got. Notification, all right. I'm gonna put that on vibrate. This is probably gonna get very intrusive. So, yeah, every level that I've created, I've tried to make visually as different as the last. As you can see, I've got I guess the sky dome and the terrain for It's a Small World. I was very fortunate to even get the Main Street Electrical Parade vehicle. Ultimately, though, I've got so many power discs, but the only ones I ever really use, I don't use the ones with the special weapons. I don't use the one with the special vehicles. I don't use any of that shit. I only use the ones with the alternate costumes because they're badass. Which I'm actually gonna pick up the only 2 costumes that I'm missing for the Marvel characters. Anyways, we're not gonna do it. So. You see, okay, if you look at the bar on the top right, where it's, it goes from green to red, you look at the one, at the little icon that's on the red, that's the virtual memory. That's the level, and the higher it goes, the less things you can spawn or put in your world. Right now, you see it's not completely maxed out, but it's pretty damn close. And I can assure you, when I created this level, that icon was in the yellow. I never like to push it towards the red. If I get to the yellow, I make do with what I got, and I create some good shit, and I compensate. And I keep it at the yellow because I know what I'm going to put in there. I'm going to have spawning enemies, I'm going to have vehicles, I'm going to try to put all this shit that needs to have virtual memory to spawn. And if that shit is all the way to the top, then those enemies, I mean, regardless, the shit will activate, the switches will activate, but nothing will spawn. Vehicles won't come into the game, enemies won't spawn. So the challenges and everything I built around, which is basically, I'll show you this with the Lone Ranger. I haven't played him in a while. This is a switch, if I remember correctly. I don't know which one of these switches is for enemies. Okay, this one's for enemies. I built this one a little different than the ones I normally build. Ooh, and I upgraded. So this one I built different from the rest of them in the sense that I usually make a like a challenge. Like you'll see that right there. That's the challenge right there. That's gonna spawn enemies as well. But if you've played any of my enemy challenges, you know I go overboard. I want as many enemies as I possibly can, and I want to have fun. I don't want the enemies to stop spawning. When I defeat, I've gotten levels, I guess on the Xbox One version, so the virtual memory space is doubled from the 360. But I've learned to build on the Wii U and the 360, and they're far inferior to like the PS4 and Xbox One versions as far as how much stuff you could put in the game and how much you can create, how big your world can be. But what I did here was, instead of it making it just a challenge, I made a little button here. The reason for that is because this spawns a small amount of enemies, so it doesn't overload the toy box and block everything from being spawned into the world. If I go to the challenge maker, I put I keep it pretty basic, pretty simple. I like to create my enemy challenges which is my weird way of saying a challenge where you step in there, you accept the challenge, and you do nothing but combat. It's that's what I do. And with characters like this that only have one attack when you're dodging, for a long time, I hated to use these characters in those combat challenges. But then Disney Infinity came out with 3.0, and there was a very special edition they made. So the combat upgrades that were made to the Star Wars characters, to the new characters in 3.0, that combat system can be used by anybody as long as you have the tool for it, like this sword. And so I don't have anything to compare it to without having it overly complicated to like show you. But let me assure you, the way that you attack with this sword now is, I mean, you can lift them up in the air, do air combat. All the features that were different, that are different in 3.0 that haven't been in 2.0 are now reworked into the tools. So technically every character can enjoy the combat system that you have with Star Wars characters and the new Marvel characters and Disney Infinity characters. Even the ones like you see Lone Ranger from 1.0, he feels like a 3.0 character with the sword. Now, the only thing I don't like about this is you know, the attack animations are the same. The gameplay is the same. So it kind of makes every character that doesn't have an attack pattern like this one, kind of makes them all feel the same in the sense that they're probably using the same. There's enough variety in weapons to where you don't have to use the same weapon for everybody, but it just, everybody has the same, everybody just feels so similar. Better, but similar to each other than before. Anyways, so I make my challenge, my enemy challenges here, and I just try to spawn as many enemies as I can, and I've learned to work with the enemy battle wave kit. I learned all the ins and outs, all the tricks of the trade. I learned how to separate enemies and space them out. I learned which one of the locators is first player, second player, third player, fourth player spawn points. I paid really close attention to where every locator is put. It's not just random. They're put there for a reason. So I didn't really do much with these. I'm doing more with these little stands now than I used to. I used to just leave them where they were and call it a day. But this one I kind of did different, and I put it right here by the castle. And so this is every level I create. And if you've ever played any of my levels, a lot of them are up on the Disney Infinity community content. I'm sure you can find some of them. But anyways, I got really lucky with this one not being completely filled on virtual memory. So I could still play, oh that's crazy. I could still play this level without having been completely bored and having nothing to do. So there's still some playability, but I seriously doubt that it would play and load up enemies and vehicles if I was playing this on my 360 or if I was playing it on my PS3. I feel like the only reason why the virtual memory isn't completely locked up from loading anything, including buildings or terrain, is because I have that little extra power you get from the next-gen systems to give me that little itty bitty space that I would have otherwise not had if I played on the past-gen systems. So every level I make, aesthetically, I like to put shit in there that I like. You know, I'm a Disney kid. I grew up in Miami. I always made a trip to Disney annually, but when I was growing up as a kid, you know, as I moved to Texas, that kind of died out really bad. But I still have an enthusiasm for Disney like I don't have for anything else. Probably the only thing I have enthusiasm for as much as Disney is Back to the Future. But you know, there's not a lot of shit to do with that. It's a franchise that hasn't been active. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. So when I design levels, I like to put as many iconic buildings. I want to really feel like I'm playing a game that can only be playable in Disney Infinity. So I like people to see stuff in the game and be able to recognize and be like, oh look, that's Spaceship Earth, or that's that's the Cinderella's castle, that's Rapunzel's tower, you know, oh that's the house from Up. when people get into my levels, I like to give them eye candy. I like for them to recognize places and feel, because honestly, I feel like people play Disney Infinity because they want to play the characters they like. They like the characters. They want to be a part of the the fantasy. So it's ultimately useless when you don't put at least one trademark or two, so you feel like, oh, cool, awesome. I'm fighting enemies by the castle. Those are experiences you can't get from any other game. You can't have the castle in Skylanders and the spaceship Earth in Skylanders, obviously for obvious reasons. But I don't like to completely saturate my levels with nothing but trademarks and stuff, because then it becomes less original than it was intended to be. So I'll throw something in like a tree builder, and I'll build some original stuff just to add some diversity and some uniqueness to the level. But yeah, every level I ever create, there's always two things I like in a game. Two genres I personally find fun. Because, I mean, you can do anything in this game you want. You can build any kind of game you want. It's ridiculous. This freedom is stupid. I'll load him up in here because, there's no purpose, but I like to see the Winter Soldier just walk around. Yeah, if that virtual memory thing is completely filled, not only can you not load enemies and vehicles, but this guy, the side character, Winter Soldier, you can't call him in. You'll press the button, the meter will empty, but it will say your tour box is too full. So, fortunately, like I said, at this level, no matter how crazy it is, I've got just enough room to start spawning in Winter Soldier and enemies. But I guarantee you, if I do the enemy challenge, and I try to spawn them, there'll be so many enemies. The virtual memory is going to be completely locked up. But there's always two things I do with my levels. I like to put a racetrack, a very interesting racetrack, actually. I like to be a little creative. Because the racing, up until 3.0, was pretty stale. It was pretty boring. Yeah, see, I got a couple of vehicles loaded in here. I created this level when I was playing 2.0, so there's nothing from 3.0 in here, although I can probably upgrade it. But anyways, I always put a racing section, and I always put a combat section in my levels. I always do that. That way you got two genres in every level I make. So for this one, I've got a combat scenario on that world, and on this other side here is nothing but racing. So you got variety. So that was one that surprisingly still works. Hasn't locked up on me. So I'm kind of happy to find that out. But there are other ones that I've created that virtual memory wasn't full when I created it. Kingdom Come, I think, was my greatest level in terms of the level design, and in terms of the style, the variety, in terms of all that. Kingdom Come is my greatest creation ever. But this is the one. This unfortunately was the best looking and best designed level that I created, best designed world. But it was also the world that I figured out the virtual memory leak that Disney Infinity has. And yeah, I had to find out the hard way because I put so much time and effort into creating this world, and I hadn't exited out. So when I got done creating it, I put all the enemies, all the racing stuff, and and my virtual memory was they still had space. It still had space to load up enemies, and it was loading, and it was working perfect. I was so happy with what I created. As you can see, the enemy wave battle kit's right over there. This is, like I said, one of my first levels. You can see I didn't really know what I was doing, so I kind of left everything right where it was. I wish I can go back and change it, but I can't. But it's evolution, it's progress. Every new level I create, I get better and better at it, and that's as simple as it gets. But this is like, I created this, and I put so much time into like creating the style, finding the right templates for the floors to match the atmosphere. I try to make every single world feel unique to itself, but at the same time offer enough different lands in the world to where if you wanted to fight enemies in the world of Brave, if you want to fight enemies in the world of Brave, you can fight the enemies here. Let me see the virtual memory. See, look at that icon right there on the very top on the bar. That's virtual memory. That's not going to allow me to put this down. It's not going to allow me to spawn any enemies. The enemy wave battle kit will still activate. It will still have the timer, but no enemies show up because the world is so full. I can't load up complex toys like enemies with artificial intelligence or vehicles with completely different control mechanics than regular stuff. I'm even surprised it loads up toys or weapons. Really, I mean, that's surprising me. But it won't load. I have Winter Soldier's power disc here. If I call him in, it'll tell me my toy box is too full. It won't load him. So this whole entire world basically is purely cosmetic. When I intended it to be interactive and fun and exciting, and a multiplayer mayhem, crazy excitement. See, there's the little warning there. So these enemy wave battle kits is my main use. It's the simplest, easiest way, quickest way to get a system started to where you don't have to spend hours and hours doing things like assigning locators and then connecting toy links and creating enemies and deciding how long. I mean, all the complexity, all the stuff you shouldn't worry about is pretty much taken care of with that kit. It gives you everything you need. All you gotta do is just lay it out. But yeah, I designed this part to look like Brave. It's not. I'm sure it doesn't look like Brave, but I put that in there so it's iconic. These are the wisps. So if you've seen Brave, you can recognize this, and you can kind of get the picture like it's supposed to be Brave. It's not exactly supposed to be Renaissance Festival. And I connected everything with rails because I thought at the time the rails were the best way to get places. I hadn't been very familiar with teleports or, anything faster. So this is my way of doing it, and I themed every rail according to where it leads you. Of course, there's going to be a middle center in between all of these other lands, and you can see right off from the distance that one was supposed to be Agrabah. I tried to put more shit in there, but I figured leave it as empty as I can to give off the sense that it's kind of like a desert. But I mean, I spent tons and tons of research looking at I mean, hundreds of pictures of the palace from Agrabah, and they don't have like they don't have. Well, you see the rail there. It's Agrabah themed, so it's kind of like foreshadowing. It kind of tells you what to expect when you're on the rail. But I looked at. They don't have a kit or a pre-assembled building of the Palace of Agrabah. They don't have that. And you know how long it took me to align the mouth so that when you jump off the rail, you land right in the mouth. I mean, that took a while to figure out. But anyways, so I had all the pieces to build it, and you can kind of see it's not perfect. And there's the dragon I add in here. But I'm about 100%. Oh yeah, he's over there. He still loads. That's a surprise. But anyways, so it's not perfect. I had to assemble it from many different parts. But I looked at the pictures and I saw what I had, and I spent a good 30 or 45 minutes just really looking at the pictures and like memorizing it. And then I spent another 20 or 30 minutes finding the pieces and then making sure they're placed right where they're supposed to be. This is as close as I can possibly get with what I have to building the Palace of Agrabah. The placements, the sizes of the towers, everything is as close as I can possibly get. I even had the little wall built around it in the front, and I kind of left this entire place open. I originally intended to put buildings in here, but as you can see, the virtual box, the virtual memory is full. So even if I wanted to now, I couldn't do it. But yeah, I thought it'd be better to just keep it open like a desert. Not only does that allow you to be able to see the enemies when they load up, when it worked, you load up the enemies, they'll be all over the palace, they'll be out in the open. It makes combat easier and less complicated and frustrating than it has to be. So that was the world of Brave. This was the world of Aladdin. As much as I can do. But granted, I spent a lot of time on these two parts, but it gets more complicated as I go on. The one that I spent the most time, the most time looking at, researching, really trying to get down the details is Cars World or Cars Land. I hate to say Cars Land because it sounds like I'm talking about the part of Disneyland that they have. But yeah, this was designed just like the Cars playset. The same mentality. I designed this because I had all the buildings, and I looked at so many pictures of the layout of Radiator Springs. I had to look at what buildings were where, what side they were facing. I had to look at which one came first, which one came last, which one's over there, which one's over here, where the rock formation would be. I mean, the attention to detail here, I'm not bragging, but I know when the attention to detail is awesome. I wouldn't have left this the way it is unless I was absolutely sure and certain that this was as good as I was gonna get. So Cars Land. I created this. I spent the most time doing this, looking at hundreds of pictures, trying to get all the placements right. And this was the racing part of my level. Fortunately for me, this still loads up, even with a full virtual memory on a next gen system, which is impossibly stupid, but it has a memory leak. The racing part still works. So this land, the one I spent the most time on, trying to recreate and get accurate, fortunately, still you can still enjoy, you can still play, and I had a couple of vehicles here loaded up somewhere. Yeah. Again, this is 2.0 stuff, so you have vehicles here. All you gotta do, jump into one, and it allows you to race. Simple as that, not complicated. As you can see, this is not a pre-made or pre-rendered racetrack. I didn't use the racetrack creator for this. This is all done individually, piece by piece, by me. No automatic builders on this one. I wanted to create a very interesting, realistic, about as realistic as you can get with Disney Infinity. I try to create a very interesting, realistically designed racetrack. Only problem is I'm a little too ambitious. The race will work. Cars will load up, you'll be in a race, it'll work. But that little loop-de-loop over there, the little split in the track over here, it confused the game so bad that sometimes you'll spawn on the opposite end. The game basically, I got everything connected. It knows it's a racetrack. It knows that much, but it can't figure out anything else. It can't figure out which one of these two sides is the official side you need to be on. It can't determine that both of these sides are possible sides that you can enter, because when you race, you're racing towards that way. And then you come around and you come from this way. So sometimes you'll come from here, sometimes you go from there. What it does get right though is what matters. And what matters is you can start up a race, and if you pass that, and you at least attempt to try to do this race correctly, it'll count it as a lap. Now unfortunately the AI that you race with in the race here, just as bad as the game itself. The AI and the racers in the race are so unable to drive this track because it's so complex for the AI to figure out. I can't tell you how many times I've won races, not because I was fast or because I knew my layout better, but simply because the AI gets to that loop-de-loop and it's just like it can't figure out how to get around it. It keeps on spawning and respawning and respawning. It gets stuck there forever. It can't. There's no way it can get past that loop-de-loop. That is the game killer. But you might be saying to yourself, well, if the AI can't race the track and the racetrack is too confused to figure out how it's supposed to be, how are you saying I can still have fun with it? Well, there's a lot of vehicles around here. If you got 4 friends or you got friends to join you in this land, y'all can get into a vehicle and have your own race, and y'all can figure out what the layout is. Y'all can make better decisions than the AI does. And I try to put as many vehicles as I could possibly put. So I put vehicles that people can recognize. You know, you look at that vehicle, you automatically know it's Wreck-It Ralph. Look at that one, obviously looks like Tron. I don't, and I put vehicles that either mean something to me on a personal level, like in my personal experience with Disney, or that I know people can recognize and enjoy using. I don't put no stupid shit. A lot of the Avengers stuff, unless it's like the helicarrier or the Stark vehicle, I don't like to include it. At least at this point in my life, I didn't want to include it. I wanted to include vehicles that I looked forward to driving. Now you can already tell it's a little fantasy like rail, so this is the last land that I spent time on. Not as much time. I mean, it looks like I spent a lot of time on it, but not as much time as I did on the Cars land. This is Fantasyland. As you can see, every land I've made in this world is I try to give off as much of a distinction between all of them as I can. I tried not to put two lands that looked a little similar to each other. So there's a castle over there. You're not going to find that anywhere else. You got Recreation of Radiator Springs. Obviously, you're not going to find that anywhere else. Recreation of Aladdin. Okay. And Fantasyland.
I'd say things are going well.
So yeah, as you can see, I didn't spend as much time with the enemy wave battle kits. I kind of just like popped it in, changed the location, the locators for the enemies, the positioning of the players when they started. And let me show you what I mean by you can't load up the power disc character. See? Now it wouldn't be too bad if it didn't completely drain your power discharge rate, your charge meter, and make you have to wait all over again. So you run a big risk using it if you can't load them in. And it's sad. It's sad. I had to figure these things out after I was done creating the levels and uploading them to the Disney Infinity servers. But yeah, the way that this was designed, as you notice, I always put the house from up. It's like a little Easter egg. It's like a little hidden gem. Every level I've created, I always found some way to creatively put that house into the world in some way. And I figured the best place would have been right there. Just a little Easter egg. So if you ever play my levels, you'll always find that house somewhere. But yeah, the way that this was laid out, it was very spread out. You know, it gave you a reason to explore the castle because I had enemies everywhere. And I figured there's a fine line between complicated and frustrating, and then enjoyable and entertaining. I played these levels myself before I even uploaded it to Disney Infinity. If I wasn't happy with them, I would start over. And so that being said, I place the enemy locators everywhere, and I usually have a problem. Like if I can't go in a straight line to where I need to go, and I have to go left, right, around, left, back, U-turn, and then go forward just to make 3 steps or 4 feet of progress, yeah, then I get frustrated. But if you give me a reason to go in the castle and stuff, you put your enemies there, you give me a reason to explore and actually take in the sights, I'm not gonna have a problem, having to go up here, kill a couple of enemies, jump off, come down here, kill a couple more. Sadly, because of that memory leak, no one will ever truly know just how awesome this world was meant to be, because I can't load any enemies, so it makes virtually every land I've caught here nothing more than cosmetic. There's no point. You can't do anything here. Enemies don't load up. They were supposed to. They don't. So now ultimately this whole world is just it's so much potential. It's so bad. It's the one level I spent the most time on ended up being the most useless level I ever created. It's sad. I feel bad for those who downloaded it and couldn't start enemies and stuff. I didn't know any of that. Now this was the other level I created. Marvel and Disney. This is the most recently uploaded one. I don't know why they took a while to upload it. I thought at this point, after learning what I did from Kingdom Come and from the other levels, I thought that I had it figured out how to create a world that was awesome without completely maxing out the virtual memory even after you load it. Like I said, that's the biggest problem with Disney Infinity, is that it has a memory leak. You create a world, it'll show you on the meter, oh, you got plenty of virtual memory. You can load up anything you want. But as soon as you save it and exit and load it up again, that for some reason, that virtual memory gets maxed out and you can't load up vehicles, you can't load up enemies, you can't load up sidekicks, you can't load up extra characters. you can't load anything up. So ultimately, there's nothing to do in these levels because I make these levels mostly about racing and combat. And when you take out combat, you only got racing. It's like that's stupid. This level, the name says it all. You pretty much know what to expect when you read the name, Marvel and Disney. I thought I'd figured stuff out, and I figured out how to keep the virtual memory from maxing out. So instead of doing what I did with Kingdom Come, where I put 4 different lands, all distinct, with so much detail and everything, I said, well, I'm gonna cut back on that, and I'm still gonna give a really good place to be, but I'm not gonna overdo it. And I thought this was good. I went from 4 worlds to 2 lands. I'd focused on building more original structures instead of using a lot of trademark structures. I put what I wanted to, left what I didn't need. Yeah. So this was supposed to be the Disney side of things. The enemies that spawn in this enemy wave battle kit. Let me see if the virtual memories. Yeah, virtual memories full. Again, really creative little, ultimately useless. On that side is Marvel Land. Now, of course, yeah, I'm using some stuff that's not from the Marvel universe, but I only added it to add some originality to the world, to add a kind of distinction, to make it not look like exactly like something like New York or exactly like something you'd see in the movies, but like an alternate universe where this looks like a city, but it's a city that has Avengers and Marvel. So that side of the level, I'll get to that in a minute. Let me finish with this one. You see, this doesn't look very different from the Kingdom Come that I just showed you, but the reason for that is because I thought that the potential for the layout was so awesome that I was gonna get it right this time. So I was gonna have the same design, but it was gonna work. And I put as much trademark Disney shit as I could just so that you recognize it's a Disney World. The castle being the biggest one, Spaceship Earth back there. A couple of houses for Monsters University. And I think the Haunted Mansion, somewhere around here, and the Rapunzel's Tower over there. And of course, Aladdin's Grotto, or whatever they call it, and the Jungle Book. Basically, you get the idea. You come in here, you're not going to wonder, is this Disney? No, when you come in here, you'll be like, oh, this is Disney. And it's going to be like, oh yeah, this is Disney. You're going to see a lot of stuff here. And the way I had the enemies set up here, I loaded them up everywhere. Not too far apart to where it's like, well, I'm spending more time running than fighting. But just far enough to where it gives you a reason to look around. It gives you a reason to go there or go here or go into Spaceship Earth. So it's not just completely useless structures for purely eye candy. Like, everything has a purpose here. And the enemies were laid out, and they were specific to Disney Infinity, or to Disney characters. So the enemies you would fight here, I purposefully made the enemies spawn from Disney franchises on this side. Kind of keep some sort of theme going on and not break the illusion. And this was an inside joke. This is like my little joke here. I created this little house there as a joke to say that this is where I live. The reason for that is because when you go through the door, you can enter my interior. So that would kind of be like the joke right there. That's my house, and you would enter the interior. I don't even know how this works. I haven't figured out how the interior works. I don't know if somebody goes into that door and it's not me, and it will see my interior, or if they'll see their interior. I've never figured that out. No one's ever told me how that works. I've never looked it up, although I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, I'd figure it out. But obviously at this point, I was under the impression that everybody can see my interior, because otherwise, why would you have an interior? What would be the point if you couldn't share it? I mean, Disney Infinity is about creating and sharing customized, unique tastes. So if your interior can't be shared and viewed by other people, then what's the point? So that was my thinking going in. And then this is the Marvel world. Again, I put enough stuff in here to where you go in here, you be like, oh yeah, this is Marvel. There's the Avengers Tower. There's the Daily Bugle over there. And I was like, you know what? I haven't put Guardians of the Galaxy in anything. I was thinking about that. I was like, I really do want to do that. I was like, so how do I do it? How do I put a sci-fi adventure into this theme without breaking the illusion? Well, this is where I started getting very familiar with the complexities of the toys, like the teleporter. This is supposed to be the quote-unquote Guardians of the Galaxy reference. And in here, this is the badass combat arena. This is the arena for guys who don't want to spend so much time searching and more time punching. It was a small space, it looked like a battle arena, and you know what? It was remote. It was isolated from the rest of the world, so it kind of give you that feeling that you're in Guardians of the Galaxy. Not so much in the way it looks, but in the sense that you're not anywhere on the ground. And even though the gate's open and if you have a flying character, you can clearly get there from the ground. I understand that everybody plays with flying characters, so I invented a teleporter to get you from there back to the main world. So you can see I put a lot of energy into like coming up with creative ways of exploring, of fighting, and of course with this side, all the enemies that spawned were specific to Marvel franchises, so as to not break the illusion of you're in the Marvel universe here, Disney over there. But because of Disney Infinity's virtual memory leak, all that is useless. I can't load any enemies. I can go... it'll even tell me that warning there. I can go in here, it'll say something. Of course, I did custom text. Start challenge. And I always like to have enough time to go through enemies, because when I create enemy challenges like this, I give you 10 minutes, and you're like, that's too long. No, you don't know how many enemies are supposed to spawn. I had it to the point where you can reach 200. I actually went before the memory leak happened and locked up my world. I reached about 236 enemies defeated in 10 minutes, and they kept on coming, and I love that. Never stop fighting. But now, because of that memory leak, it'll count down, whatever, but it won't load anybody, ultimately making this entire world useless. So when I thought that yeah, I'm gonna end the challenge, there's no point. When I thought that I figured out how to cheat the virtual memory leak that happens, the game just didn't allow for anything. It was only up to when I got to this one. And this one I'm trying to really get up into the community, because this one is what I consider to be the most functional level I've ever made. I'm not bragging, because I don't make awesome levels. They're very simple. They're all pretty much a template. And then what I mean by that is, all my levels are only going to give you two things: racing and fighting. I took racing out of that level, hoping that it'll help with the virtual memory. Just didn't do it. So, sacrifice for nothing. But that's what you should expect with my levels. When you see Snake 373 and you see a level, you should always expect, okay, there's going to be a lot of fighting. It's probably going to be a couple of cool architecture pieces, some trademark pieces. And you should expect at least one really crazy ass racetrack to race on. This one functionally is the best, but it's still far from perfect. What I mean by that is, I allowed more freedom with the characters, with anybody who plays the level. I added more freedom. What I mean by that is, I added a lot of tools in this one that I haven't used before. In my other levels. So this is the first thing you'll see. Now, I try to recreate a mixture between functionality and Kingdom Come, kind of a sequel to Kingdom Come. But having created the levels I did, I learned a lot. And up to this point, you can see here, look at this virtual memory. Look at where it's at. I just showed you the other levels, they're maxed out, and the only one that was functional was the red. I created all, hold on. All this, which looks like a lot more than the last level I showed, the Marvel and Disney level. This looks like a lot of complex loading and a lot of memory usage. But I learned the tricks of the trade. I learned how to build big and use small. That's why no matter how many times I save and I load it back up, it'll always be in the yellow. It'll always be in the yellow. It'll only max out because, like I said, when I create enemy challenges, I just overdo it. I take it to ridiculous heights. I don't want you to fight 1 or 2 enemies at a time. No, you're gonna fight as many enemies as the game can possibly throw at you. I've set it to where I don't load up so many enemies that the game just goes like single digit frames. I've learned that not to do that a long time ago, because the game will slow down crazy if you put too many enemies, because it'll load more enemies than the virtual memory will allow, and that will cause the game to lag up and probably freeze and just lock up completely, and nobody has a good time with that. So I created I fine-tuned the number of enemies you can take, the max amount of enemies you can fight at one time without having complete chaos and ruining the performance of the level. Now this is the vehicle generator. I learned that the rails were not only a little, confusing and a little, headache inducing, but I created 4 levels with 1 in the main middle, and I only created 1 challenge. 1 combat challenge and 1 race. The race is over there. For a while, I didn't like the concept. Well, let me get a vehicle. Every land has its own vehicle station, and every land can load a vehicle. Not only that, but I went and did all my hardest to unlock as many toys as I can, so that when you load up this vehicle selection, you get a different vehicle every time. And if you don't like the vehicle, then just use the reset button, reset it. Now this doesn't reset vehicles for every vehicle platform on every land. It only resets the vehicle platform specifically to the platform that it's by. I did that so as if somebody were to load up a vehicle on another platform and you press that button, it doesn't take away their vehicle. So they still have their vehicle, and if they want to get rid of it, they go to their platform. So I thought that was a really good saver. And I have so many different vehicles that will spawn because I have all these vehicle generators set on random. I couldn't decide what vehicles would be best, so I decided to just go random. Here are gonna be a few tricks that I didn't put in the description, and hopefully when they accept my my submission, hopefully it'll help people out when they check it out this level. This will fundamentally be the level that will work. In theory, it will function the way it was intended to function. It'll load up enemies, it'll load up vehicles, regardless of what platform you're on. So even if you're not using an Xbox One or PS4, this should still load fine and still function fine on a 360 or PS3 or Wii U, which are the inferior versions. I hate to say it. I played them all. I've got Disney Infinity 2.0 on the Wii U, Disney Infinity 1.0 on the 360. I even got 2.0 on PS4. And I found out the next gen systems offer the most amount of memory and don't have, and so I made it on I made this level on the Xbox One. This is completely 3.0 revolutionized, which means that you'll fight enemies from 3.0, 2.0, 1.0. I said screw it, man. Put as much variety as I possibly can in here. That will apply to the enemies. I try to do it with a theme, but I kind of felt like it had its benefits to having a singular, theme of enemies. It had a uniformity. It felt organized. But you don't play Disney Infinity because you want to stick to a franchise. You play Disney Infinity because it offers you Marvel, Disney characters, Pixar characters, Star Wars characters. You like it for the variety, for the sheer variety of genres, combat styles, gameplay. That's what Disney Infinity is. That's what the Infinity in Disney Infinity stands for. Infinite possibilities. So why restrict yourself to one genre? Unless you're really good at that genre and you don't like any other genre, you can do that. But what I'm saying is, in terms of aesthetics, why restrict yourself to one franchise? You have all these other enemies, why not use them? That being said, you'll be fighting a stormtrooper next to an Asgardian. You know, not an Asgardian. What the hell am I saying? You'll be fighting a Stormtrooper next to a Royal Guard, next to a Agrabah Palace, guard. You'll also be fighting symbiotes, all on the same levels, in the same worlds. Anyway, let me get back on my horse. I also created the Sky Dome Changer. I've unlocked all the Sky Domes, excluding the ones that I have on discs that I feel are it's not worth getting up and switching something out to put on there, especially But I added a Sky Changer. Every purchasable Sky Dome in the game is unlocked from my account. So I can only assume when I created this level, it also kept all these Sky Domes unlocked. So you have the most varied amount of Sky Domes to change from. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'll just use the... I mean, this looks about right. I was gonna try to get an X-Wing, but... So, I put a vehicle platform on every platform. Or a vehicle generator on every platform, including the main one. Why? Because to get to any of these lands, walking... I've actually counted it from when I got from the challenge to get to the next land. It took me about 30 seconds walking or running as fast as I could. Just running. 30 seconds from the middle to any one of these places. 30 seconds. And for me, that's 30 seconds of boring shit. So I wanted to make vehicles accessible no matter where you are. Because you put a vehicle platform or a vehicle generator in this world, that's cool. You have a way of getting around if you're here. But what if you're over there? What if you're over there? You telling me you're gonna have to walk all the way over here to get one? I was like, that ain't gonna work. That mechanically, fundamentally, that's not right. So I put one on every single land, so you're never too far away from getting a fast transport. And every one of them is set on random, so you always get the variety factor in the enemies, the vehicles, the platforms. It's just ridiculous. Dare I say it, this might be the most variety I've ever put. But then again, this is the latest toy box I created, so I've learned a lot since my first outing with the toy box. Now, I want to show you this. The bar there for the virtual memory, like I said, is nowhere near full. But it will get maxed out because I set it up to where you have the most amount of enemies the game can possibly handle without having performance issues. That being said, this game will load a lot of enemies at once. You may not see it because I have the enemy locators. As you can see, there's some over here. I have the enemy and player locators spread out. So player 1, when they start the challenge, starts in this world. Player 2, when they start the challenge, is going to start over here. And every land is going to have a plethora of enemies to fight. Every land has one. There's no uniformity with the enemies. It's just whatever they want to throw at you. If they want to load a stormtrooper at this little foresty area, then they're gonna do it. If they want to put a pirate over here, that's gonna happen. There's just no organization when it comes to that. But I don't like to call it unorganized. I like to call it variety. Anyways, so yeah, so vehicle platforms for every player. Every player starts isolated from everyone else. Cause I've noticed when people do challenges with friends, and people don't move the player spawn points, everybody's fighting, but it's like it's less about fighting enemies and it's more about who can get to them first. And I play with people on my own challenges, or at least the ones that worked. And I noticed that, like, no matter how many enemies I spawned to compensate for the skill levels of people, it wasn't enough, because if you weren't fast enough, if you weren't strong enough, you weren't going to kill anybody. Your friends were going to kill everybody, like a wave of destruction, and you're falling behind. So I was like, how do I fix this? Well, you put everybody far apart. I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, player 1 is not going to be able to fuck around with player 2's shit. they're literally in different lands, and they're not gonna want to go anywhere else because guess what? They've got their own problems here. They've got their own enemies to fight. They don't need to go over there to fight them. Now, of course, when you're in single player, when it's just you playing the enemy challenge, that's one of the other reasons why I put the vehicle platforms or generators on every platform, is so that, you know, enemies are going to spawn in massive numbers, but that's not really apparent when you start the challenge, because when you start the challenge, you start in one section of the land. So the only enemies you ever see from, I mean, there's great draw distance. I've been here a couple of times. I've been able to see the enemies that spawned over there. I have the enemies spawn in everywhere in every land. So you have a reason to move from here to here to here. You have a reason to explore, and I spread out the locators for the enemies far enough because the terrain isn't large enough to where it's a long walk. So I spread them out enough to where it gives you a reason to explore. And as you can see, there's the up house. Same thing with this. There's a reason to go through all these things. Now, the layout here isn't broken. Like, you can get from point A to point B without ever having to, you know, jump or climb. You can walk around the entire buildings. There's space in between the sides here. There's hallways here. I mean, and the enemies are gonna be everywhere here. They're gonna be over here. They're gonna spawn here. They're gonna spawn here. They're gonna spawn here. And like I said, they're gonna spawn in massive amounts. If all you notice are the enemies where you're at, you're gonna be like, that's a lot of enemies. Imagine that. The virtual memory is nowhere near full, but my challenge spawns so many enemies it gets maxed out. And that brings up one problem that is not really a problem. It has a solution, but I couldn't describe it. I couldn't put it in the description, although it's really important. There's two really good advice points that I can give you in order for you to get the most out of this level once it becomes live on the community. First off, before you start the challenge, spawn a vehicle. Spawn a vehicle, because once the challenge starts and all those enemies load up, nothing's gonna load up. Nothing. The vehicles won't spawn until you clear out enough enemies to where the virtual memory is cleared up a bit to load up a vehicle. And sometimes, yeah, you can do that. You'll be able to clear out enemies, but then you'll spend so much time walking and running and spend so much time just trying to get to places. So what I would do is, before you start the challenge, go to a vehicle station. Just keep spawning and clearing out the vehicles until you get one you like. You're bound to find a vehicle you like. I've unlocked every vehicle possible that's not on a power disc. So you've got a massive amount of variety, from horses, critters, Star Wars, vehicles, cars, mounts, hover bikes, everything. There's something for somebody, and that's why I made them random. Spawn one of those vehicles. Take that vehicle with you. Take it with you. Because, like I said, when you get to the challenge right here, I have the player spawn locators in separate areas. So, if you take the vehicle over here to the challenge, and you get off the vehicle, and then you go, and then you walk into the challenge, it's gonna start you off over here, and ultimately that vehicle is useless now, at least for the first part, because you still have to walk all of this to get to the vehicle. But here's a trick. If you're in a vehicle, regardless of what vehicle it is, I'll even show you. I'm gonna show you, just so it's because it's easy. I'm not gonna start the challenge, but I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna load up a vehicle. I'm gonna reset the counter though. I remember I have a horse. I don't know where we want. I'm gonna load up just a random vehicle. Okay, I'll drive with this one. So now I've secured a way of getting to every land. And I'll get there fast. Less time driving, more time fighting. But if you go into the challenge maker with the vehicle, it allows you to start the challenge. Not only that, but when you start the challenge with the vehicle, guess what? You're in the vehicle. Also, it doesn't matter where you are, where you get spawned. Wherever you are, it's gonna be okay. Because not only do you have a vehicle and you don't have to worry about the virtual memory being locked up, but now you have that vehicle literally with you when you start up. And I'll go over the you can see it lagging a little bit. It's because it's not just loading enemies on this land, it's loading enemies on every single land I built. And it's about 10 minutes. Of course, I forgot that his one move sucks. It's more of a ranged guy. But yeah, these enemies will spawn, and I created it in a way that enemies won't keep spawning consistently in the same place. So what I mean by that is, once you've killed all the enemies here in this land, it's not gonna just reset and fill it back up with enemies. At least not yet. No, it's not yet. So you could stay here the rest of the time. No enemies are gonna spawn. Whether or not that's because of the virtual memory lockup or not, I don't know. But it works to the benefit because it gives you a reason to get out of where you're at and start exploring. So now you can go here, clear out the enemies here. And once you clear out the enemies, they'll stay gone until you go to another place and clear out the enemies there. So I try to really make everything fundamentally useful in some way, shape, or form. I try to make everything have a point in the game. Everything has a point. You know, whether it be as something as minor as, you know, just getting from somewhere fast to having a reason to actually explore, to having a reason to go up the tree. You know, that's there purely for platforming. You know, when you're with your friends and you just want to like have a challenge and stuff. I didn't make an actual challenge, although I have a feeling my next step in evolution here when it comes to building levels is I'm gonna branch out from just doing combat and races to doing combat, platforming, and races. I feel like I understand combat and races better than any other genre when it comes to Disney Infinity. And personally, in my personal experience, I get the most fun out of it. That's where I find myself having the best time. So when I'm fighting something, I'm using combat or I'm racing with vehicles, especially now in 3.0, where the vehicles are noticeably faster. I mean, to the point where the brake is actually more useful than it ever was before. Vehicles felt slow. They felt like every vehicle felt the same. They all felt like they always had the same speed, and that speed was slow. And it's so slow, in fact, that you can just hold down the gas button or the gas trigger. You can hold that down, never have to worry about hitting the brakes, because you never go fast enough to lose control. But then you get into like a pod racer, like Anakin's pod racer, and you ride around in that. Oh, forget it. It's so fast. It's so fast. And like I said, everything has a purpose. So the reason why these roads look so weird wasn't just because of space or connectivity issues. No. It's because you're going down a ramp, your vehicle speeds up tremendously. You're going up a hill, you're getting off the road. So I give you a reason to not just drive fast, but also use your brakes. Control yourself, you know? So there's a purpose in even the trails that I put, the roads I put. As you notice, there's no real big theme going on. I think that's the biggest departure from my other levels that I've created, is that I stopped worrying about putting stuff like the Cinderella Castle. I feel like I've created enough levels, even though they're useless. I've created enough levels to where that's become overused at this point. That I don't really need to create another level with Cinderella's Castle. I already got 2 of them with Cinderella's Castle. If I want to have Cinderella's Castle in my world, I'll just play one of the levels that I've created, or one of the worlds that I made with Cinderella's Castle. I'll call it a day. Even though ultimately I'm not going to, because I can't do anything in it. But yeah, so I stopped doing that. And the racetracks, I always had a problem with racetracks. if I couldn't get terrain underneath the racetrack, I felt like it broke the reality of it, you know? Like, it's unbelievable the stuff that happens in here, but you enjoy it because it's entertaining. When you see a racetrack floating in midair, it's like, that's not possible, even for Disney Infinity standards. How is that in midair on nothing? But then I actually tried it out with this. You know, I spent so much time avoiding that problem. This one time I was like, you know what? I want to create a racetrack, but I don't want to build a huge ass terrain. That's what I'm going for. I'm going for space. To put as much as I can in as little space as I need. So I did that whole wide winding stunt track or racetrack creator. Laid it out here, put it right in the middle. I said to myself, whatever it builds, I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna race it, regardless if it's floating, or not. If I like how it's laid out, then I'm gonna keep it. And honestly, I got used to it. I don't have a problem with racetracks like this being suspended in midair, because technically, when you think about it, the terrain you're on is suspended in midair. So you can kind of justify why the track is not on top of terrain by saying, well, nothing's technically on floor. I mean, so that's my way of being comfortable and making peace with that. I also added these decorative pieces, so to give you kind of like a pleasing aesthetic to the eyes while you're racing, give you something to look at. That's why the up house is right there, because when you're going around that track, the camera is positioned when you're racing around that track to where it circles around the up house as if it's focusing on it. You know what, I'm just gonna pause for a second and do some quick upgrades. I think I like leveled up like 3 or 4 times since then. Yeah, look at that, 17. Look at that. I feel like a kid in a candy store. I always want to speed up as much as possible without breaking reality here. I don't know why I'm upgrading this. His strength is not his charge attack, I can assure you. If anything, I should be upgrading his gun. That's where it's at. But anyways, yeah, the way the camera pans around when you're driving, it almost looks like it's focusing on the house as if to make it the main attraction. So I thought that was pretty creative. And that was laid out pretty nice. I couldn't lay it out better if I wanted to. That was the best option. None of these lands are specifically themed. If you notice, I call it Agrabah because ultimately those are the pieces I used to build the places. But and that's like the Cave of Wonders is right there. So ultimately, yeah, that's what I'd call it. But it's not as iconic as you might expect. This would be like this would be Agrabah in spirit, but not in structure. You look at it, it reminds you of Agrabah, but you're not gonna be like it's Aladdin. I mean, even with the Cave of Wonders there, even I don't go, oh yeah, that's totally Aladdin's world. I just go, I'm in a part of Agrabah. City's real, location's unfamiliar though. Like seeing a deleted scene from a movie. You know, you recognize the characters, you recognize the movie, you just never seen that part before. And it's like, wow, you know, it's pretty cool, but it's nothing special. Same thing with this. I tried to use as much original parts and pieces as I possibly could to build an original concept here. So Agrabah in spirit, original in design. The layout is not specific to any blueprint layout. There's no palace like there was in Kingdom Come. Everything's kind of generic Agrabah, and that's fine because you know, I wanted to make it more dense. I wanted to feel. It's not gonna feel alive. I don't think I'll ever put characters, townspeople in any of my worlds. I don't think I'll ever have a reason to do that because they take up so much virtual memory that it's just stupid. I would like to be able to do that if Disney Infinity could handle having so many character townspeople like they do in the playsets, and I can have them all walking around doing their own thing. Oh yeah, this would be a whole different story. This would be 10 times more enjoyable because it won't be just you and enemies in a big open space. You feel like you're part of a living, breathing world. But it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the sacrifice. So I don't ever put character townspeople, even though I've unlocked them all, and I actually go out of my way to unlock them, which I don't know why. I guess I'm a collector. Disney Infinity is about collecting as much as anything else, but I'll never find a way to include them and still have a fun box. What I care about is enjoying the moment, enjoying the time spent in the world. Because anybody can create a world. What you do in it is what matters. And what I know really good, especially after all the experience I have doing all these levels and focusing on those genres, my strengths are combat and racing. I know what feels like a good racetrack. I know what feels like an awesome experience. I know how to keep a stale system from feeling stale and feeling interesting. I figured out how to do that. Like I said, I only create levels that I enjoy and that I know others will enjoy. Because Disney Infinity has so many technical issues. It's frustrating. But the concept and the execution of the concept itself is so awesome. So awesome that I can excuse them. I'm not accepting the technical flaws, but I'm excusing them. Like the virtual memory, I don't like that shit has a memory leak and just maxes it out the next time you load up your world. I don't like that. But you know what I did? I worked with it, and now I created a world where no matter how many times you load it up, it's still going to allow space to load up vehicles, to load up enemies, not at the same time, mind you. And while I'm on that subject, if you have a character like I do, like Winter Soldier, and then you spawn all the enemies, you go to the challenge, you start the challenge, yeah, you're not going to be able to spawn Winter Soldier. He's not going to come up. You're going to deplete your meter, and it's not going to do anything. So my suggestion is also, as soon as the counter, if you get that meter filled with that character you want to use, as soon as that counter is over and you can start moving, the second you can start moving, spawn him in first before the game has a chance to spawn in any enemies. That way you can still use Winter Soldier and you can still have the crazy amount of enemies and numbers that you normally would have. Those are problems that I haven't really quite perfected a way of figuring out, of avoiding. Virtual memory is still having a problem, and I've tried reducing the number of enemies. I've tried to do that. Like I've lowered the count of each enemy. But I had to lower the amount of enemies to such a stupid small level. It wasn't worth it for me. Fighting 1 or 2 guys on each land, driving to fight 1 or 2 guys on another land, it wasn't worth it for me. So I had a trade-off. I can find a way to work around the virtual memory and get the experience that I want, or I can just sacrifice the experience I want to not have to worry about virtual memory. I just worked around I just worked around it. So keep that in mind. I'm saying when. Now I should be saying yes, because I've submitted this to Disney, and for some reason they haven't confirmed it with me. This is like the only level they haven't really said congratulations. It's now in the community. I don't know why it's taking so long either. This should be the most functional level I ever submitted to Disney. But and there's no trademarks. There's no like the copyrights at all that I'm not within my rights of using here. I'm not quoting licenses that Disney's not owning. I'm not putting myself at risk there. There's no reason for them to like not accept it, other than I can't. But yeah, if you get a chance to play this level, this world called Common Ground, 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, Wii U, everything but the 3DS, obviously. This game, this world, will work as expected. As long as you follow these 3 simple guidelines, these 3 simple workarounds, you will have absolutely no problem with this world whatsoever. Like I said, first one, spawn a vehicle in before you go to the challenge. Well, I mean, you can do a race, but you don't have this problem with a race. And as you notice, the race is over there, so that part's dedicated to the race. And you can see that guy, that goes everywhere. That's a massive long track. But yeah, you don't have any of these virtual memory issues when you're in a race. So, none of this applies to racing. It all applies to combat. Before you go to the combat challenge in this world, spawn a vehicle. Keep on doing this, clearing it out and spawning the vehicle until you get one that you want to use. One that you don't mind using for the next 10 minutes, because that's how long this challenge lasts. And it lasts that long because it gives you enough to work with. And I feel like it's not even long enough sometimes. I feel like it can go on longer, but then it overstays its welcome. Anyways, spawn a vehicle, one that you like. Ride that vehicle, whether it be an X-Wing, a horse, or Mr. Incredible's car. Spawn that vehicle, ride it over to the challenge plate. Stay in the vehicle. Don't get out and walk to the challenge plate. Otherwise, the vehicle's going to stay right where it is, and you're going to spawn really far away from it. Drive, land, or ride into the challenge plate. Start the challenge. You start the challenge like that, then you'll spawn at your specific point with the vehicle, and you won't have to worry about losing the vehicle. You won't have to worry about taking a long time to get anywhere in life. That's the first workaround in order to get it, to reduce your stress levels here. Second workaround, if you've got somebody like I do, like Winter Soldier, start the challenge. As soon as you start the challenge, and as soon as you can move your character, spawn him in first, as fast as possible. That's the only way you'll get a character like Winter Soldier or Ant-Man to load up into the game. You wait until the enemies spawn, the virtual memory will be locked up, and you won't be able to pull them in. You'll waste the meter, it'll say your tour box is full. And ultimately, that's a power disc that becomes useless and disappointing. So remember, start the challenge when it's full. That way, when you start the challenge, you load them up immediately. And that'll be the only time you can use your character. Sadly, it's not a perfect workaround, but it still allows you to use that character some way. It's better than no way. Now this was the last level I worked on. I'm done with it. I'm not gonna do anything different with it. I would like to put the Radio Disney music player in here, because I'm gonna share my opinion on this. I have to. I don't do this often, but I saw that Radio Disney. You know what? Why am I even talking about it? I can just show you. This guy right here. I'm gonna put him in. No one expects this. No one thinks about it like this. But this is the most impressive, genius, smartest, most creative technological feature that Disney Infinity has ever incorporated in any other versions ever. In fact, I might even go as far as to say this is the most creative toy or feature or function in any video game ever. Any video game ever made. I don't care if it's Halo, I don't care if it's Need for Speed, anything that uses music. This is the most creative thing. Check this. Well, okay, I can't show you that apparently, but I'll have to explain it. This streams Radio Disney live to your music box and plays it. As long as you press that play button, it'll play it. Whatever's on the radio right then and there is going to play like the music playing right now in the game, and it'll continue playing the entire time until you go back to it, or you hit the off switch. Let me tell you why this, I feel, is the far most amazing, spectacular thing I've ever seen in any game. Developers have problems with music, in the sense that they have to pay big money to get well-known artists and well-known songs into their games. Sometimes they can't afford the good music. They can't afford the good stuff. Games like Watch Dogs, games like Need for Speed 2015. Games like The Crew. They have music. Some you might recognize. None of it is worth the money. It's licensed. They had to pay somebody to use it. It wasn't like it was all original. This isn't Halo. All the music you listen to in these games are not created specifically for the game. They were created, and that's it. And you don't have the freedom to like the music that they put in there. So Need for Speed 2015, they got music that to them they thought was awesome. To me, I don't like any of it. So companies and developers have a problem with paying big money for good music from real good artists that are popular or current. A lot of people don't want to do this, so they end up getting stupid music like The Crew does. The only one that actually got good music was Forza Horizon 2. But a lot of people don't agree with me on that. Forza Horizon 2, I feel, is one of the only few racing games where I listen to the original music and it gets me in the moment. You have variety. I stick with the bass arena. The music they play on that radio station in Forza Horizon, it's adrenaline rush, gets you in the moment. That's about the only exception. But games like The Crew, Need for Speed 2015, games that require music, they end up not wanting to dish out the money for a good song, so they end up getting whatever they can. And the song they get you don't like. I don't think anyone likes. I don't see anybody saying they love music from The Crew, because it's horribly miscasted. The second problem that companies have with music is that once they put the music in the game, that's it. Music, unless it's really good music, which it rarely is, there's only been a few exceptions, music can be really dated. Think about it. If back in '99 someone put the thong song in their Grand Theft Auto 3, at that time it'll be like, oh man, this is pretty badass. Yeah, I like this music. You try to do that shit now, you're gonna be like, oh bro, come on, are you serious? This song, are you serious? That's what I mean by dated. Once you put your song in there, you're committed. That's it. You can't go back and be like and update the song. You can't do that. So you're dedicated. You're stuck with the music you put in there. Even if the music is good, it'll eventually get dated and outdated and non-current and unpopular and even, dare I say, played out. Especially if you're playing a game frequent enough that they only have a few tracks. Yeah, music gets old really quick. Why is this the most ingenious, smartest, most creative, and most technologically advanced and superior form of anything input into a video game ever? It fixes both those problems. Disney owns Radio Disney. Radio Disney is a radio station on the AM radio. Okay? Radio Disney follows the trends, follows the popularity, knows its demographic. So why I'm saying that is because the music it plays on Radio Disney are music that is so genetically popular. It's like there's no unique taste at all with the music, but they'll play shit that you recognize, or they'll play shit that people like. Demi Lovato, people like One Direction, whatever is popular at Radio Disney. I don't know. I don't listen to Radio Disney. Ultimately, a useless toy for me because I don't like Radio Disney. But I have to respect the man who created this and this concept. They don't have to pay anybody for licensing rights to put music in their game. They found a genius loophole. They own Disney owns Radio Disney. Radio Disney has freedom of the radio to play whatever's popular, whatever they can, whatever is allowed on the radio. So they play stuff on the radio that people vote for, I guess, or request. So when most games put a song that you don't like, and you're like, oh man, I hate the soundtrack for this game, this little toy streams Radio Disney straight into your toy box. And it's gonna be music for sure people like. For sure. And it's not gonna be some guy, oh, I don't know this artist, I don't know this, I've never heard this before. No. You know these people. It would have cost probably millions of dollars for Disney to dish out money to license Demi Lovato music. I don't know why the fuck they do that anyways. But Demi Lovato music and her latest songs in Disney and Disney Infinity. It would cost millions. I'm almost guaranteed millions of dollars for just her songs. Disney said, you know what? We don't need to do that. We're gonna stream our radio station that already plays Demi Lovato songs, and not just any songs, the songs that people request. We're gonna stream that music into our game, and not have to pay a single dime for licensing rights because it's not in our game. It's in a radio station. That is genius. They avoid paying millions of dollars to get songs people want for free, without breaking any bylaws or anything. It's perfectly legal. It's the perfect loophole. And then the other problem is when you put songs in your game, when you license music in your game, give it 2 or 3 years, that song's gonna be played the hell out. You're not gonna like it anymore. They fixed that problem too. They stream Radio Disney. When they stream it, that means whatever's playing on the radio, give or take a delay of a few seconds, it's gonna be playing in your music box. And we are almost guaranteed that Radio Disney is one of the few AM radio stations that will keep up with the times when it comes to what's trendy and what's not. So not only do you have music people want to listen to that would have cost millions to try to license, but their music will never be outdated. They'll always play the current music, whatever it is, at whatever time it is. Whether it be now or 3 years from now. Radio Disney is Radio Disney. Like any radio station, they're gonna play what's hot, what's popular. So I don't know any game ever where I said to myself, you know, I played this game 5 years ago, and I'm still hearing new music, and I've been playing it for about the last 3 years. I'm still hearing new music. I'm still hearing music that I love. I've never played a game like that. The Radio Disney music player is the most ingenious, most creative way to avoid spending millions of dollars and to avoid being outdated. This is so genius that I didn't think of this at all. This concept, I didn't think of this. I would have never thought about this. And it's so genius that when I actually stopped and said, and I'm like, it's playing Demi Lovato. I recognize this song. I started thinking back to other games, and I was like, bro, this is like the only time I've actually heard a song that's popular in a video game that I play. That's actually good. And then I started connecting the dots, and I was like, I need to know how are they getting away with this? And the more I was questioning how are they getting away with this and not getting in trouble, the more I figured it out, and the more I'm like, this is impressive. The more my mind was blown. I don't care if you have a Disney castle. I don't care if you put the Avengers Tower in there. I don't care for any of that. Compared to this, all of that is tissue paper. Use it once, throw it away, never see it again. This is the most impressive toy. Technologically and conceptually, the most impressive toy you will ever use in this game, and it's the most genius concept you will ever try to figure out and come up with the conclusion of understanding in any game. And believe me, I own every system. I mean, every system. You pay attention to my streams. I'm streaming from PS4. I'll stream from my Alienware Alpha every once in a while. It's just a little more complicated to get it running with the open broadcast. But yeah, and I have a lot of games. I play all types of genres. I prefer not to play JRPGs, but I'll play one if it's good enough. Point I'm making is, if I say this is the most impressive thing I've ever seen, that means something, because I've seen a lot of impressive things in my time. The one thing technology will always struggle with is losing its value and becoming outdated. Technology is advancing at such a fast rate. At the iPhone 6, completely made the iPhone 5 obsolete. It may run the same software, but whatever the iPhone 5 did, iPhone 6 Plus does better, bigger, skinnier. It even bends better. You know, stuff that you don't want to happen, it does better. What I'm saying is, in the war against technology being outdated and being left behind in the dust, this is one piece of technology I can safely say will never be outdated. Streaming popular music into your game that's happening live without Disney paying millions to get people like One Direction and Demi Lovato. I mean, I'm only mentioning her a lot because that's the only song I heard from Radio Disney. I was like blown away and I turned it off. But big names, big recognizable names, cost millions. They're doing it for free. I'll say that again. It would cost millions to license these artists like Usher or whatever. Millions of dollars to license 1 or 2 tracks. They're putting the tracks people want to listen to for free. And it's all legal. I've been impressed with Disney Infinity, but never been impressed like this. I'm bragging about this because, like I said, I respect it. I respect what this toy does. But, not to contradict myself, I just, ultimately, for me, personally, I find it useless. The concept is genius. The execution is flawless. It's even got good quality music. But, in the end, I don't listen to any of the songs that Radio Disney plays. And that's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. I'm not the demographic. I'm gonna exit out of this level. Because the whole reason I started broadcasting was so that I can broadcast the start and the end of creating an entire world from start to finish. But I felt like I had to. I felt like I had so much to say, so much to show, so much to talk about, that I had to get it out of the way. But now that it's out of the way, now that I've talked about it, and we can start doing what I originally intended to start doing, which was from start to finish, broadcast in real time the creation of my next world. It's not going to be a throwaway world. The world that I'm going to create in this toy box will try to be the superior. I'm not going to set the standards high. I'm not going to be saying it's going to be the best one I ever made, because I don't know that. I haven't even started. What I'm going to say is this is going to be one that I'm going to stand behind and put my reputation on the line for. Every box I've submitted to Disney, I'm not saying it was wildly popular, and I understand. The shit didn't work. Had I known it didn't work, I would have not done it. I would have not uploaded it. I would have worked out the bugs, and I would have got it working again. But but when it did work for me, I have to say that I liked it. I was proud of what I created. We're gonna do things a little different here. Well, you know what? Yeah, I don't really use the enemy creator because I don't feel like it spawns enough enemies frequently enough. But so that we can create a more immersive. You know what? No, that's. See, I gotta first figure out what the idea is gonna be about. What am I trying to? What's the main purpose for this next one? I guess this next one I want to work. I want it to function. I don't think I'm gonna work so much on the aesthetics, on trying to create a unique identity. In fact, dare I say it, I might not even put a different another terrain. I might just work with this one and only terrain. I think that's what's gonna happen. Actually, you know what? I have to cut this off because I gotta really stop for a second. I gotta really think. I gotta really think what I'm gonna do. Yeah, because I don't even have the slightest idea what I'm trying to go for. Uh, yeah. Give me about 30 minutes to an hour to really come up with a concept here. So I'm not rehashing the same old concepts. And so I build a level that I feel is gonna be different from the rest of them. I just know I'm just gonna work with one tile with one terrain block. I'm just gonna keep the distance short, sweet, and simple. Whether or not I'm gonna have other terrain blocks that I can teleport to, so that they're not big, they're not connected, and you can't see them, but it'll still take you places. I'll have to understand how the teleportation works and how I can use the teleport system for multiple locations. Yeah, this is gonna take me a minute. I spent so much time talking about what I know. I spent no time figuring out what I don't. And what I don't know is what I'm trying to do with this one. I know I'm gonna put enemies. I always put enemies in all my levels. That's all I do. But it's not as simple as that. I don't know how I'm gonna put the enemies in there. I don't know how I'm going to what style I'm gonna go for it. If I'm gonna create an enemy wave battle kit, if I'm gonna create an enemy generator, if I'm gonna have enemy respawners that are activated by triggers. I don't know. There's so many ways to do it, but there's only one way that I'm gonna end up doing it. So, unfortunately, I mean, I guess this broadcast has been long enough. I guess hopefully, I don't really know, but hopefully it was entertaining enough to suffice for the time it requires you to invest to watch. And maybe you've learned a few things, maybe you haven't. But yeah, give me about an hour to really put pen to paper in this one, and I will be back with the broadcast, and we'll start a new broadcast, and we're gonna start broadcasting in real time from start to finish the creation of my next big project. I say big, I didn't say great. I know it's gonna take me some time. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I do know one thing for sure. I want this to work no matter what. I don't want to have problems spawning in Winter Soldier or Ant-Man. I don't want to have problems spawning in vehicles if I even need to put vehicles. I don't want to have problems spawning in enemies. No. Ultimately, no matter what I do, it's going to work, and it's not going to give anybody any problems on any platform. It's going to fundamentally function. That's what I'm trying to do, but how I'm going to do it, I haven't figured out yet. So thank you for tuning in to what I call Sessions of Snake Vape, my little name for my broadcasts, for anything I do on YouTube or Twitch. I do hope that y'all enjoyed the time, and y'all share the enthusiasm I do for Disney Infinity. It's not just for little kids. I'm 26 years old. Maybe I got childlike imagination. Maybe I just have appreciation for the franchise, for Disney's properties. I don't know. That could be it. There could be a lot of things. But either way, I have fun with it. So thank you for tuning in, and I will show you more, and hopefully, kind of let you build your own opinion on whether or not you're gonna like the game if you haven't played it. This is Snake 373.